Hey guys, glad to see you again. Today, we're diving into a very different world. A world of dirt, danger, and raw, untamed life. We're stepping into the heart of the Middle Ages, a time when taverns weren't just places to drink, but the centers of society where anything could happen. Forget the grand castles, the knights, and the fairy tale romances. Today, we're talking about what it was really like to enter a medieval tavern. Picture it, a place where laughter, conflict, and chaos collide. A place where stories are shared, rumors spread, and brawls break out at the drop of a hat. Before we dive into that dark and wild world, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the journey I'm taking you on. And hey, drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing where all of you are tuning in from, and it always makes me feel closer to this amazing global community we've built. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for some ambient background noise, or just get comfortable. We're about to travel back in time to an era when taverns were the heartbeat of the town, and everything from idle chatter to full-blown brawls could erupt at any moment. Imagine the atmosphere, the murmur of conversation, the clinking of mugs, the smoke-filled air, and the warmth of the fire crackling in the corner. It's time to step into the past, where the raw energy of life surged through every creaky door and spilled out of every mug. Imagine this. You step onto a muddy street in a medieval town. The cold bites at your skin, and the smell of wet earth fills the air. You're exhausted, hungry, and cold. The weight of the journey pressing on your shoulders. All you want is to find a place to rest, to get some warmth and food. And then you hear it, the sounds of the tavern, the raucous laughter, the clinking of mugs, the shouts of heated arguments. You follow the noise through the fog, and there it is, the tavern, standing as a beacon in the dreary night. But this isn't the kind of tavern you might be imagining. It's far from cozy, far from clean, and certainly not welcoming in the way modern bars are. The tavern is more of a chaotic war zone, a crucible where every part of society is thrown together. You won't find velvet cushions here or soft carpets underfoot. This is a place of hard wood, sweat, and dirt. It's a raw, dangerous place, but it's also where all the action happens. It's a world where people, no matter their social class, come together to drink, gamble, and escape the weight of reality. Finding the tavern isn't as easy as it is today. In medieval times, there were no street signs or clear directions. Instead, people relied on sound to guide them. The noise of the tavern, the laughter, the clinking of mugs, the occasional shout of anger or excitement could be heard from streets away. If you followed the noise, you would find your way. But once you reached the tavern, you would realize that appearances could be deceiving. The building itself was unremarkable, a simple wooden structure with a crude sign, often depicting a barrel or a fish. But what lay inside? That was a world of its own. You step inside, and the first thing that hits you is the smell. The stench of spilled beer, sweat, roasted meat, and damp wood fills the air. It's overpowering, the kind of smell that sticks to your clothes and lingers long after you leave. The floor is uneven, covered in mud and ale stains from countless nights of chaos. The walls are dark, blackened with soot from the fire that burns in the hearth. The space is cramped. The low ceiling almost feels like it's pressing in on you. There's no room for personal space here, just a mass of bodies, all pushing, shoving, drinking, and talking. The heat from the fire is a welcome relief from the cold, but it doesn't do much to improve the smell or the noise. The tavern is alive with movement and sound. People are gathered around the tables, shouting at each other over their drinks, laughing loudly, or arguing heatedly about everything from taxes to politics. The air is thick with tension and noise, but also with a strange kind of energy. This is where the pulse of the town beats the loudest. The fire in the hearth crackles, casting a dim, flickering glow on the people sitting around it. It's the center of the tavern, the one constant in the ever-changing chaos of the room. Everyone gravitates towards it, trying to get warm, trying to escape the cold and the dirt of the outside world. The warmth of the fire is comforting, but even that can't hide the underlying tension in the air. The drinks flow freely, and with every passing moment, the atmosphere grows thicker, more charged. At one table, a group of men are playing dice, their voices rising in excitement as the game goes in their favor. At another, a man is loudly telling a tale about a recent battle he was in, embellishing the story with dramatic flair. The others listen, hanging on his every word, their attention momentarily diverted from their own problems. For a few moments, the tavern becomes a place where anything seems possible, where glory, laughter, and even heartbreak coexist. But not all is peaceful here. The sounds of brawls are never far away in a medieval tavern. You can hear the rumble of a disagreement escalating into a fight, the crash of a mug hitting the floor, and the roar of voices. It doesn't take much for the room to turn into chaos. A misplaced word, a glance, a drunken insult, and suddenly fists are flying. The barman eyes the scene from behind the counter, but he doesn't intervene just yet. He's seen it all before. The brawls, the broken noses, the thrown chairs. In this place, it's almost expected. After all, what's a tavern without a little chaos? And then, just like that, the fight fizzles out. The aggressors are pulled apart, the crowd settles back down, and the noise rises again. The barman sighs and gets back to wiping down the counter, but the tension in the air doesn't fully dissipate. The energy in the room has shifted, and now everyone knows it could happen again at any moment. People return to their mugs, to their conversations, to their games. The fire crackles, and the songs of the bard play on. The night continues, wild, untamed, and full of surprises. The tavern is the heart of the town. It's where the action is, where life is lived in its most unfiltered form. And while there may be moments of joy, of laughter, and camaraderie, there's also a dark side. A side where violence brews beneath the surface, where secrets are whispered in the corners, and where survival means navigating the chaos that surrounds you. It's a place of both danger and comfort, where every night could be your last, or the start of something unforgettable. But for tonight, you're here, part of the madness, part of the story. The tavern has you now. As the night deepens, the tavern transforms. The conversations become more intimate, the air thicker with the smell of drink and sweat. The fire in the hearth burns lower, but the warmth it offers still fills the room, keeping the chill of the night outside. The flickering shadows dance on the walls, painting eerie images of the people who sit around the room, their faces half hidden in the dim light. In one corner of the tavern, a young man and woman exchange glances. There's something in the air between them, an unspoken attraction that neither of them can deny. The woman brushes her hair back from her face, and the man leans in, his voice low, filled with the kind of confidence that only alcohol can give. He tells her about his adventures, how he fought in the last great battle and survived. His words are filled with the bravado of youth, but there's something in his eyes that tells a different story. The woman listens, intrigued, her hand brushing against his as they share a moment of quiet connection amid the chaos. But not all interactions are as gentle. As the evening stretches on, the tavern's rowdiness only grows. More and more patrons stumble in, each one louder than the last, each one bringing a new wave of chaos. A group of men, clearly drunk, sit at a table near the back, playing cards with a reckless energy. The stakes are high, though the bets aren't always clear. A man loses his hand and curses loudly, throwing his cards across the table. A fight nearly breaks out, but a swift intervention from the tavern keeper, a man used to such disturbances, quiets the tension before it spills over into violence. This is the rhythm of the tavern. Bursts of excitement, followed by sudden silences, only to be broken again by the next round of clinking glasses, laughter, or shouting. It's a place where time doesn't seem to exist. It's a place where people lose themselves in drink, in stories, in the fleeting comfort of human connection. Here, the harsh realities of life outside are forgotten, at least for a moment. The music of the bard continues, his lute strumming in time with the rising and falling energy of the tavern. His song is a mixture of sorrow and joy, a reflection of the lives being lived here. The patrons listen, some half-heartedly, others with rapt attention. But as the music swells, a man suddenly stumbles up to the front and begins to sing along, his voice off-key but filled with passion. Others join in, turning the song into a drunken chorus, laughing as they belt out the lyrics. But the mood shifts again when a loud crash interrupts the festivities. One of the men who had been playing cards slams his fist into the table in frustration. The wooden bench topples over, and a chair clatters to the ground. The tavern's laughter stops for a split second, all eyes turning toward the confrontation. The man stands, his chest heaving, glaring at the others around him. There's a fire in his eyes, a dangerous kind of anger, the type that has been simmering all evening, finally coming to the surface. The barman steps forward, but not quickly. He knows better than to rush into such situations. The tavern keeper is a man of few words, but his presence is commanding. He watches, waits for the right moment to act. The patrons around the table exchange nervous glances, but no one moves. They know this routine all too well. The tension in the air is thick. The man standing in front of his overturned chair takes a deep breath, his fists clenched, his body tense with rage. Then, as if realizing he's been standing in the spotlight for too long, he slumps back down, muttering curses under his breath. The tension is broken, but only just. The tavern settles back into its rhythm, though the atmosphere remains charged, everyone a little more on edge than before. Despite the violence, despite the chaos, the tavern has a strange kind of charm. It's a place where people come to forget their problems, even if only for a few hours. It's a place where the lines between right and wrong, good and bad, are blurred. No one here is truly innocent. No one is purely evil. They are all simply human, trying to survive in a world that is as unpredictable as the tavern they've come to seek refuge in. As the night wears on, more patrons trickle out, leaving behind empty mugs and spilled food. The fire is dying, the last few embers glowing softly. The tavern keeper begins to clean, wiping down the tables, preparing for another day. But even in the silence that follows the madness, there's a sense of anticipation. Tomorrow, the tavern will fill again with the sounds of life and of all its chaos. The tavern keeper turns the key in the door, and with one last look around the now quiet space, he locks up. Outside, the town is still dark, the streets empty and cold. But for those who have experienced the tavern's warmth, it's a world they will always return to, a place where anything can happen, and where, for a little while, you can be someone else. The streets of the town are quieter now, the sounds of the tavern's revelry fading as you step outside into the cool night air. The world feels different once you leave the warmth and chaos behind. The town's narrow, winding streets seem more oppressive in the darkness, and the light from the tavern door slowly fades, leaving only the faint glow of torches lining the pathways. The weight of the night settles in, the cold wind biting at your skin as you wrap your cloak tighter around you. But even as the tavern's noise disappears into the distance, its influence still lingers. It's hard to shake off the chaotic energy, the raw intensity of the lives lived within those walls. As you walk away, you can't help but think of the people still inside, their lives intertwined in the most primal ways. Some will stay until dawn, others will disappear into the night, leaving behind only the echoes of their laughter, their arguments, and their fleeting moments of connection. Back inside the tavern, things have slowed down. but the remnants of the evening's madness are still palpable. The low murmur of voices continues, but it's no longer the raucous clamor it was just hours ago. The barman wipes down the counter, his face tired but knowing. He's seen it all before. For him, the tavern is a revolving door of chaos, but it's also a place of comfort, a place where the world stops for just a moment. A few patrons remain, sitting hunched over their drinks, lost in their own thoughts. The rest have staggered out, their bellies full and their minds dulled by too much drink. The fire in the hearth is now little more than a collection of glowing embers, the warmth it offered fading with the night. The flickering light casts shadows on the walls, and it feels as though the tavern itself is settling into sleep. But sleep does not come easily here, not for the patrons who are still awake, not for the tavern keeper. He knows that the tavern, like the town itself, never really sleeps. There's always something happening, another fight waiting to break out, another drunken rant to silence, another story to tell. And then, out of the silence, the door swings open once more. A figure steps into the dimly lit room. His face is partially obscured by the hood of his cloak, but there's something about his presence that draws attention. He stands for a moment, surveying the room, his eyes scanning the familiar faces of the remaining patrons. His footsteps are slow, measured, and his movements deliberate. The tavern keeper looks up, his eyes narrowing slightly, but he says nothing. The man doesn't sit at the bar or approach the table where the others are seated. Instead, he walks toward a dark corner, away from the fire, and disappears into the shadows. There's a sudden stillness in the air. The quiet hum of the room seems to hold its breath. The patrons, drunk or otherwise, glance nervously at the new arrival, but no one dares to speak. The tension is palpable. Who is this man? Why has he come? What does he want? The tavern's heartbeat falters for a moment. As the night stretches on, the room fills with an uneasy silence. The stranger remains hidden in the corner, his silhouette barely visible against the darkness. The tavern keeper watches him from behind the counter, his hand resting on the wooden surface. He knows this man, or at least he recognizes the type. This is no ordinary traveler. The aura of danger surrounds him, but there's also a quiet respect in the way the other patrons keep their distance. The barman decides not to act for now. There's no rush. If the stranger wants a drink, he'll ask for one. If he wants trouble, it'll come to him soon enough. The night is far from over, and in the world of the tavern, anything can happen. As time drags on, the last of the evening's patrons begin to leave. One by one they stumble out into the cold, their voices low, their steps unsteady. The tavern empties slowly, and the once boisterous space becomes quieter, more somber. The fire in the hearth flickers, the last embers dying out as the tavern keeper steps out from behind the counter and begins to clean up. But as the door swings open again, it's the stranger who's left standing. His face is still hidden in the shadows, and his presence looms over the room. He stands still, as if waiting for something or someone. The air is thick with anticipation. The barman eyes him one last time, his instincts sharpening. Something doesn't sit right, and in the tavern, where danger and intrigue are never far behind, you learn to trust those instincts. As the last of the patrons finally leave, the tavern keeper makes his way toward the door. He's tired, but the night isn't over yet. The stranger in the corner hasn't moved, hasn't spoken, but there's still something ominous about the silence. The barman hesitates for a moment, but then, as if to break the tension, he mutters under his breath, "Is there something I can get you, friend?" The words hang in the air, and for a moment the tavern feels like it holds its breath. The stranger's eyes flicker toward the barman, and then he stands, his movements fluid and deliberate. And just like that, the chaos starts anew. The man's slow steps echo in the now empty tavern, his presence still casting a long shadow in the dim light. He approaches the bar with deliberate purpose, his hood pulled low over his face, masking his features. The barman watches carefully, his instincts on high alert. The stranger pauses in front of the counter, his eyes briefly meeting the tavern keeper's. There's something about those eyes. They're sharp, calculating, and there's a weight to them. The barman's hand hovers just over the edge of the counter, ready to grab a mug or perhaps a weapon, depending on what this man wants. For a long moment, neither of them speaks. The only sound in the room is the crackle of the dying fire, the warmth it gives, now more of a comfort than a source of light. The tavern keeper leans in slightly, breaking the silence. "Drink?" he asks, his voice low, careful. The stranger remains still for a moment longer, studying the barman's face. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, he lifts his head, revealing his face for the first time. His features are hardened, scarred, a face weathered by the harsh realities of life. But what stands out most are his eyes, cold, calculating, and empty, as if they've seen things no one should ever have to witness. "A drink would be fine," the stranger replies, his voice smooth but heavy with something unspoken. The barman nods, turning to grab a mug of ale, but there's a sense of unease that hangs in the air. The stranger's presence has changed everything. The once chaotic and noisy tavern now feels oppressive, the walls closing in with every passing second. The barman slides the mug across the counter, his hand brushing against the wood, his mind racing. There's something about this man, something dangerous. The stranger takes the mug, not looking at the barman as he raises it to his lips, his eyes still scanning the room. There's no hurry in his actions. It's as if time itself is on his side. "I hear things in places like this," the stranger finally says, breaking the silence once more. His voice is calm, measured, but there's an edge to it. "Whispers about things that happen in the dark corners of this town, about people who come and go in the night." The barman stops cleaning the counter, his hand frozen in mid-motion. This man is no ordinary traveler. He's not here just for a drink. "What kind of things?" the barman asks cautiously, his voice low. He's heard stories about the underworld, but this feels different. This feels dangerous. The stranger leans in, his eyes gleaming with the faintest hint of a smile. "Things that could change everything. Things you wouldn't believe." The barman doesn't answer. He's heard too many rumors, too many tales of lost travelers, of people who came into town and never left. The tavern keeper has been around long enough to know that when someone speaks in riddles, trouble isn't far behind. But before he can speak again, the stranger stands, tossing the mug aside with a practiced hand, his movement swift and graceful. The ale splashes across the floor, but the man doesn't seem to care. He steps back, his eyes now fully focused on the tavern keeper. "I'll be seeing you around," the stranger says, his voice soft but laced with a dark promise. And with that, he turns and walks out of the tavern, disappearing into the night. The door swings shut behind him, and the sound of the wind howls through the empty streets. The tavern is left in silence once more, but the unease remains. The barman stands there, staring at the door. He knows that this isn't over. The night continues, but it feels different now. The energy has shifted. The tavern, once a place of lively chaos and drunken revelry, feels colder, more dangerous. The barman resumes his cleaning, but his mind is elsewhere. The stranger's words linger in his ears, his promise echoing in the hollow space of the room. He knows this is the calm before the storm. The hours tick by slowly. The fire in the hearth flickers and dies, leaving only smoldering embers. The tavern keeper moves about the space, methodically cleaning the tables and benches, trying to push the feeling of dread out of his mind. But it clings to him, an unshakable weight. Finally, the tavern is quiet again, save for the sound of the barman's footsteps on the wooden floor. He locks the door, just as he always does at the end of the night, but as he turns to walk away, he hears it. A soft knock on the door. He freezes. The tavern keeper slowly approaches the door, his heart pounding in his chest. He hasn't heard a knock like this in years, a slow, deliberate tap, as though someone is waiting for him to respond. The barman's mind races. The stranger? Another traveler? Or something worse? His hand hovers over the door handle, but he hesitates. The tavern has always been a refuge, a place to forget the world outside. But now it feels like a trap, the walls closing in around him. Every corner of the room seems to hold a secret, a mystery, something lurking just beyond the light. Finally, he takes a deep breath and opens the door. And just like that, the night turns darker. The door creaks as it swings open. The barman stands in the threshold, his heart racing. Outside, the moon is hidden behind thick clouds, casting the street in darkness. The air feels heavy, thick with something. Anticipation, perhaps, or something darker. A chill runs down the barman's spine, but he forces himself to stay calm. There's no one there. He steps outside, his eyes scanning the empty street, the cobblestones wet from the earlier rain. The wind picks up, howling through the alleyways, and for a moment the barman feels like he's being watched. He tells himself it's just the nerves, the tension from the strange encounter earlier, but deep down he knows it's more than that. He glances down the street where the dim light of his tavern door is the only source of illumination. Nothing moves, not a single soul in sight. But just as he's about to turn back, a figure steps out from the shadows, standing in the doorway of a nearby building. The barman freezes. It's the stranger. But this time, something is different. His posture is tense, his hands resting on the hilt of a sword that's tucked into his belt. He doesn't move. He just stands there, watching the barman. The silence between them is oppressive, thick with unspoken words. The barman clears his throat, trying to break the tension. "You again," he says, his voice low, almost a whisper. The stranger doesn't answer. Instead, he steps forward, his boots making soft, deliberate thuds against the cobblestones. With each step, the barman's unease grows, his instincts screaming at him to retreat. But he doesn't move. He can't. Finally, the stranger stops just a few feet away, his eyes locked onto the tavern keeper's. The silence stretches on for what feels like an eternity, and then, finally, the stranger speaks. "You don't know it yet, but you've been chosen," he says, his voice chillingly calm. The barman's blood runs cold. Chosen? For what? Before he can ask, the stranger turns on his heel and begins walking down the street, his figure disappearing into the darkness. The barman stands there, his heart pounding in his chest, his mind racing. He steps back into the tavern, slamming the door behind him as though it might shield him from whatever fate awaits outside. The fire crackles in the hearth, but it does little to warm the cold that has settled in his bones. He knows that he's not alone anymore. Something has changed. He can feel it in the air, in the very walls of the tavern. The place he once thought of as a refuge has become something else entirely. A prison, a ticking clock, counting down to whatever the stranger has promised. The tavern keeper looks around, his eyes lingering on the last few mugs scattered across the tables, the chairs pushed out of place. But nothing feels the same now. It's as if the tavern is holding its breath, waiting for the next step in this twisted game. Minutes pass, but the barman does not move. His mind is filled with questions, with images of the stranger's cold eyes, his cryptic words. What did he mean by chosen, and why him? As he stands there, lost in thought, the door suddenly rattles. A loud bang, then another. It's not the wind. Someone is knocking. The barman swallows hard, his throat dry as the knock comes again, more insistent this time. It's as if whoever is outside knows he's inside, knows exactly where to find him. The tavern keeper hesitates for a moment, his breath quickening, but he knows there's no avoiding this. With one last glance at the fire, He walks toward the door, his fingers gripping the handle. He opens it, and standing there in the doorway is a woman. Her face is hidden beneath a hood, her cloak soaked with rain, but her eyes pierce through the darkness like two sharp, burning embers. She looks at him for a moment as if appraising him, then steps inside without waiting for an invitation. "I was told to find you," she says, her voice steady, almost as cold as the stranger's. The barman is speechless, his mind racing. Who is she, and what does she want? She looks around the tavern, her gaze sharp, before returning her attention to him. "They're coming," she adds, her voice now low, dangerous, "and they'll be looking for you." The tavern, once a place of drunken revelry and warmth, now feels like a den of secrets and shadows. The barman's heart pounds in his chest as the woman's words hang in the air. "They're coming. Who is they?" The woman steps closer, and for a moment he feels the weight of her presence in a way that makes him uncomfortable. "They've marked you," she says, as if reading his thoughts. "But they won't stop until they have you. Not this time." The barman's mind races, panic bubbling up from deep within him. He knows he can't run. Not from this, not from whatever is coming for him. But he has to know more. He has to understand why he's involved in this twisted game. "Why me?" he manages to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman's eyes flash, a brief moment of something like pity passing over her face. "You're the key," she says. "The question is, will you unlock the door before they do?" The door slams shut behind her, leaving the barman standing alone once more in the quiet tavern, his heart hammering in his chest. The fire crackles in the hearth, but it's colder than ever. The tavern keeper stands motionless, the echoes of the woman's words reverberating in his mind. "You're the key." Those words ring through him, a cold, unshakable truth that has settled deep into his bones. The fire crackles softly in the hearth, but the room feels colder now. The tavern, once a chaotic refuge from the world outside, now feels like a trap. Every corner, every shadow seems to watch him, waiting for something he can't understand. He turns to face the door, his hand still gripping the handle as if somehow it might keep him tethered to the familiar. But his mind is racing, every second that passes growing heavier with the weight of what he's just learned. The woman's cryptic message hangs in the air. "They're coming!" He can't ignore it. For a long moment he stands still, letting the silence settle over the tavern, his eyes darting between the shadows that fill the room. He listens to the soft crackling of the fire, the only sound that fills the empty space around him. The once familiar, comforting sounds now seem ominous, like they're mocking him. The quiet is suffocating. The woman, who was she? What did she mean? The key? He doesn't have the answers, but something deep inside him tells him that the time for questions is over. Whatever is coming, whatever fate has led him to this point, it's already here. He can feel it in the pit of his stomach, like the calm before a storm. The door. It has to be locked. If he's to survive this night, he has to prepare. The tavern is no longer the safe, rowdy haven it once was. It's a battlefield, and he can feel the first stirrings of conflict rising in the air. He walks toward the door, locking it with trembling hands. The bolt slides into place with a finality that feels far too permanent. But even as the door clicks shut, something inside him shifts. There's no turning back now. He's in this, whatever this is, and he has no choice but to see it through. The tavern, once a bustling place of ale and laughter, has now become a prison of its own design. He can hear his breath echoing in the silence, the crackling fire the only source of light. The walls feel like they're closing in, the flickering shadows on the walls now taking on an unnatural life of their own. Suddenly, there's another knock at the door. He freezes. The knock is softer this time, almost tentative, but it carries with it an unmistakable sense of urgency. Whoever it is, they're not waiting for him to open the door. They know what's inside. They know exactly who is here. For a moment, he hesitates. His heart races in his chest. But then he hears it again, the soft knock, more insistent this time. He knows that whoever is on the other side isn't leaving. The woman's warning rings in his ears. They're coming. The barman slowly steps back from the door, his hand instinctively reaching for the heavy wooden chair that rests against the wall. He drags it across the floor, wedging it under the door handle. It's a futile attempt, but it's the only thing he can think of. His heart beats loudly in his ears, and the sound of it feels deafening in the otherwise still tavern. The knock comes again, louder this time. The barman's breath catches in his throat. He turns toward the back of the tavern, his eyes scanning the room. There's nowhere to hide. With a final deep breath, he steps forward, his hand gripping the door handle. The tavern keeper steels himself, knowing he can't run from whatever's about to happen. He unlocks the door, pulling it open just enough to peer through the crack. The dark figure on the other side is cloaked, but there's something unsettling about the way they stand, their presence heavy and foreboding. "Are you alone?" the voice on the other side asks, low and hushed. The barman swallows hard, his hand trembling as he grips the door tighter. I'm not sure," he responds, his voice betraying him. The figure doesn't move, but something about the tone of their voice feels different now, sharper. "You need to come with us," the figure says, almost pleading. The tavern keeper knows then that there's no way out. Whoever these people are, whatever they want from him, it's too late to turn back now. The door creaks open further, revealing just enough of the figure to make him feel trapped. The figure steps forward, and the tavern keeper is suddenly aware of the sounds of feet shuffling outside, like there's a group, a crowd, just waiting for him to make the next move. "You're coming with us," the voice repeats, and it's not a request. The air around the tavern keeper thickens with the weight of the command. It's a feeling he's never experienced before. There's no choice now. Whatever is happening, whatever these people want from him, It's happening now. Without another word, the tavern keeper steps back into the shadows, away from the door. He can hear their footsteps growing louder, as though they're preparing to force their way inside if he doesn't act fast. He knows it's only a matter of time before they break through the door, and when they do, the tavern will never be the same. The fire in the hearth dies out with a final mournful crackle, leaving nothing but the eerie glow of the dying embers. The barman has one final thought before the world goes black. It's time to face what's coming. The knock at the door comes again, more forceful this time. The tavern keeper's heart races, and a cold sweat runs down his back. He feels trapped, cornered. The weight of the situation is pressing down on him with unbearable force, and every part of his body screams at him to run, to escape. But there's no place to go. The tavern, which had always been his sanctuary, now feels like a tomb. He knows they're out there, the strangers, the ones who have come for him. What do they want? What have they marked him for? His eyes dart around the room, searching for something, anything, to defend himself with. The shelves are filled with bottles of liquor, some empty, some still half full. The wooden chairs, heavy and sturdy, could serve as a weapon, but they're no match for whatever is on the other side of the door. He takes a deep breath, steadying himself. His fingers tighten around the handle of a chair, ready to swing it at the first person who steps through the door. Another knock. This time it's followed by the scraping of something sharp against wood. A chill crawls up the barman's spine as he recognizes the sound. Someone is trying to break through. The tavern keeper quickly shuffles toward the back of the bar, trying to keep as quiet as possible, but the sound of his footsteps feels deafening in the silence. His mind is racing. How did they know? How could they have found him so quickly? Suddenly, the door rattles violently. The tavern keeper spins around, his breath shallow. His muscles are tense, ready for the inevitable. His thoughts are a blur of confusion and fear. He's never been in a situation like this. He's faced drunks and thieves, but this is different. There's something otherworldly about it. The door shakes again, and then, with a final, bone-jarring crash, the lock breaks. The door bursts open. Standing in the doorway is a figure cloaked in dark robes, their face hidden in shadow. Their presence fills the room like a storm. But it's not the figure that holds the tavern keeper's attention. Behind them, a group of people, no, more like shadows, begin to move into the tavern. Their footsteps are silent, but their collective presence is suffocating. The tavern keeper's breath catches in his throat as he realizes what he's up against. These people aren't just visitors. They're not mere wanderers. No, these are hunters, hunters with purpose. "Get away from the door," the cloaked figure commands, their voice deep and echoing with authority. The tavern keeper doesn't move. He can't. In the dim light of the tavern, the figures gather in the doorway, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. There's something wrong with them, something unnatural. Their movements are too fluid, their faces too still, as if they are not quite human, as if they've been molded by something darker. "You've made a mistake," the tavern keeper says, his voice shaking but defiant. He takes a step backward, his hand reaching for the nearest bottle of liquor, gripping it like a weapon. He's ready to defend himself, but he knows deep down it won't be enough. One of the figures steps forward, a man with pale, almost translucent skin. His eyes are black, devoid of any warmth, any humanity. He tilts his head slightly, regarding the barman with a cold, indifferent expression. "You're the key," the figure says, his voice like the grinding of stone, harsh and emotionless. "We've been searching for you. You cannot escape." The barman's heart skips a beat. He tries to swallow, but his mouth is dry. "I don't know what you mean," he whispers, his grip tightening on the bottle. "I'm just a tavern keeper. I'm nobody." The figure steps closer, and the barman can feel the air grow heavier with each movement. The cold, unnerving presence presses in on him, suffocating him. "You don't understand, do you? Your tavern, your life, all of it has been leading to this moment. You were chosen, and now the time has come." The tavern keeper's mind races, trying to grasp the gravity of what the figure is saying. Chosen for what? He reaches for the door, trying to push past the cloaked figure, but the others behind him step forward, blocking his way. Their cold eyes follow him, unblinking, as if they're watching his every move. "You think you can run?" the pale figure hisses, his voice rising like a threat. The tavern keeper freezes. His heart is pounding in his chest, and for the first time in his life, he feels small, helpless. Then, as if on cue, the dark figures begin to move. They surround him, closing in from all sides, and the barman feels a cold rush of terror surge through his veins. He's trapped. The door is blocked. There's nowhere to run. His chest tightens, and the air feels thin, like it's slipping through his lungs. "You don't have a choice anymore," the pale figure says. "You never did." With a final movement, the figure reaches into his cloak and pulls out something small and dark, a jagged, ancient-looking key. The tavern keeper stares at it, mesmerized. "Unlock the door, and the world will open to you," the figure continues, holding the key out toward him. "But you may not like what you find." The tavern keeper looks at the key, then at the figure, and for a moment everything seems to stop. The world outside the tavern, the noise of the town, the clutter of his life. It all feels distant, irrelevant. All that matters now is the key in the figure's hand, a decision, a choice. The tavern keeper steps forward, his hand shaking as he reaches out for the key, his fingers brushing against the cold metal. The weight of it settles in his palm, a symbol of something he can't yet understand, something dangerous. The key feels alive, pulsing with an energy that is beyond his comprehension. He grips it tightly, feeling the weight of the responsibility he now carries. And just like that, the tavern keeper realizes that his life and the world around him will never be the same. The key feels heavy in his hand, its cold metal almost burning against his skin. The tavern keeper stands frozen for a moment, staring at the dark figure before him, the others lurking in the shadows, their eyes unwavering. The air is thick with anticipation, and the silence between them feels like an eternity. His heart pounds in his chest, every beat feeling like a countdown. He knows what this key means, the power it holds, the doors it will open. But he's terrified of what lies beyond the threshold, of what he's about to unleash. But there's no turning back now. He feels it in his bones. The moment has arrived, and the path has already been set before him. With a steadying breath, he lifts the key and slowly turns it in the lock that he never knew existed. A strange hum vibrates through the air, almost imperceptible at first, but then growing louder, vibrating through the walls of the tavern. It's a sound of power, of ancient forces awakening. The barman's grip tightens around the key, and the door shudders violently, as though something on the other side is straining to get through. The figures in the room begin to move. They take slow, deliberate steps toward him, their faces still obscured by the shadows of their hoods. Their presence is suffocating, their very existence pulling at the air, making it thick with fear and the unknown. "You have no idea what you've just done," the pale figure speaks again, his voice colder now, filled with an unsettling mix of awe and warning. "That key is not just a symbol, it's a door to things that should have never been awakened." The barman takes a deep breath, his mind clouded with questions. What is behind the door? What am I unlocking? He looks at the key again, its dark, jagged teeth glowing faintly in the dim light of the tavern. There's no going back now. This is his choice, his fate. And as much as he wants to scream or run, he knows he must step forward. The door before him creaks as it begins to open. The figures move closer, their eyes still fixed on him, watching his every movement with an unsettling intensity. The tavern keeper's fingers tremble as he pushes the door open, the darkness on the other side swallowing the light from the fire. The room beyond the door is nothing like the tavern he's known. Instead of the warmth and chaos of the tavern's hearth, there's cold, oppressive darkness. The room is vast, stretching far beyond the confines of the tavern's walls, and it feels wrong. The very air is thick, almost as though it's alive, pressing against his skin, making it hard to breathe. And in the distance, barely visible in the darkness, he can see something moving. The tavern keeper steps forward, the wooden floor creaking beneath his boots as he crosses the threshold. The door slams shut behind him, but it's not the same door anymore. The tavern is gone, replaced by this new, unwelcoming space. The shadows seem to stretch and writhe around him, moving with a life of their own. Suddenly, he feels a presence. It's not just in the room, it's inside him. The air around him seems to shift, and he can hear whispers, low, dissonant, unintelligible murmurs. They're coming from every direction. The voices are all around him, surrounding him. The barman can feel them crawling under his skin, filling his mind with images of things he can't comprehend. Do you hear them? The pale figure's voice echoes, though he's nowhere in sight. Those voices are the ones who came before you. They were chosen too. The barman stumbles, disoriented, his hands reaching for anything to steady himself. But there's nothing. The room is an endless void. His vision blurs, the edges of the room spinning as if reality itself is bending around him. The whispers grow louder, more insistent, their words piercing through the fog in his mind. The tavern keeper struggles to breathe, his chest tightening with a sudden suffocating pressure. He doesn't know how long he's been standing there, but it feels like hours. The darkness feels alive now, pulsing, breathing, pushing him towards something. He doesn't know what it is. He doesn't even want to know. But just as suddenly as it began, the pressure lifts, the whispers stop, and in the silence that follows, he hears something else, a sound that's far too quiet for him to place. It's almost like footsteps. He turns sharply, his eyes scanning the dark room, heart racing. But there's nothing, just more shadows, more blackness, stretching on endlessly. The darkness feels heavier now, as though it's closing in, and the barman's mind spins with fear. And then, from the corner of his eye, he sees it. A figure. At first, it's just a silhouette, standing in the corner of the room, half hidden by the thick blackness. The figure is tall, their outlines strange, almost otherworldly. It moves slowly, deliberately, closer and closer. With every step it takes, the tavern keeper feels his pulse quicken. He can't breathe. He can't move. The figure stops a few feet away, its face still hidden by the darkness, but its presence is suffocating. The tavern keeper is frozen, caught between the terror of what he knows is coming and the unnatural stillness of the figure before him. The figure steps into the dim light, and the tavern keeper gasps. It's not human, at least not in any way he recognizes. The figure's skin is pale, stretched too tight over a gaunt frame. Its eyes are wide and black, devoid of any warmth, any emotion. The figure's mouth opens slowly, revealing sharp, jagged teeth that seem far too large for its thin face. "You've come," the creature hisses, its voice rasping and eerie. "You've opened the door, and now you will see." The tavern keeper feels his legs buckle beneath him, his mind reeling. The figure steps closer, the air around it growing colder, the shadows warping in its wake. The barman tries to speak, to scream, to do anything, but the words won't come. And then the figure raises a hand, pointing toward the far corner of the room, where an ominous shape begins to form in the darkness. "You were the key," the figure continues, its voice now a low growl. "And now you must understand what you've unlocked." The tavern keeper's eyes lock onto the shape. It's massive, shifting, growing, and for the first time He understands. Whatever it is, it's alive, and it's been waiting. The room begins to distort around him, and the figure's voice echoes in his ears, louder now, all-encompassing. Welcome to the truth.